Funding for NJ Spotlight News provided by the members of the New Jersey Education Association, making public schools great for every child. RWJ Barnabas Health. Let's be healthy together. New Jersey Realtors, the voice of real estate in New Jersey. More information is online at njrealtor.com. And Orsted, committed to delivering clean, reliable, American-made energy.
Tonight on NJ Spotlight News, it's day 3 of the heat wave. Record-breaking temperatures continue plaguing most of the state. Power outages, transit delays, roads buckling, putting residents at risk. Plus, under the dome, 5 days until the 2026 fiscal state budget is due. So where do lawmakers stand?
And so we're at this point in the process where we're waiting for lawmakers to what we call drop the spending bill, to approve it in committee, and then to vote on it in both full houses.
Also arraigned for assault charges against ICE agents, Congresswoman LaMonica McIver enters her plea today following the confrontation at Delaney Hall in May.
We will not stand for it. I will not stand for it. They will not intimidate me. They will not stop me from doing my job. I will continue to do what the people of the 10th Congressional District elected me to do.
And one-on-one with Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman. From the strikes in Iran to her pushback on the big, beautiful bill, she takes us inside the Capitol chaos.
He shouldn't get a Peace Prize for it. He ought to get impeached for it.
NJ Spotlight News begins right now.
From NJPBS Studios, this is NJ Spotlight News with Brianna Vannozzi.
Good evening and thanks for joining us on this Wednesday night. I'm Brianna Vannozzi. We begin with a few of the headlines we're following. First, New Jersey is dealing with a third day of intense, dangerous heat, with temperatures reaching well into the mid and high 90s. Now, that's actually a couple of degrees cooler than yesterday, but the oppressive humidity is pushing the heat index to feel more like it's between 100 and 110 degrees, depending on your location. An extreme heat warning remains in effect until 8 p.m. tonight for most of the state. On Tuesday, temperatures hit as high as 102 degrees in Atlantic City and 103 right here in Newark, breaking previous daily records. According to the National Weather Service, yesterday was the hottest day ever recorded for the month of June in Newark. Meanwhile, thousands of residents are facing the heat without power. All 4 main electric utilities in New Jersey are reporting sporadic outages. And the sun scorched Route 287 this week, causing the concrete highway to buckle, forcing the closure of several southbound lanes. Those have all been reopened, but not in time to save yesterday's rush hour commute. Relief is coming, though. Overnight rain is expected to cool things down, bringing temperatures back into the 70s and 80s tomorrow, so hang in there. Also tonight, an update on U.S. involvement with war in the Middle East. A ceasefire between Israel and Iran appears to be holding for a second day, despite both sides accusing the other of violating the truce just after it was announced, and it remains fragile. Both Iran and Israel now say they'll respect the truce as long as the other side doesn't violate it. At a NATO summit earlier today in the Netherlands, President Trump touted his decision to get involved with the conflict as a victory for everybody, saying the U.S. airstrikes targeting Iranian nuclear sites ended the war, and brushed off early U.S. intelligence assessments on the effectiveness of the bombing. A leaked government report found the strikes didn't completely destroy the core components of Iran's nuclear sites and may have only set it back by months. The White House and Israel, though, are disputing that. They maintain that the nuclear program has been set back by decades, calling the sites totally inoperable and obliterated. Diplomacy experts say President Trump deserves credit for bringing both sides to the table so quickly, but also worry about using diplomacy as a false premise to get them there. Princeton University politics professor Jake Shapiro tells NJ Spotlight News Iran is playing the long game.
This is a fairly pragmatic move. We should also take from this, though, that Iranian leaders are playing potentially quite a long game here. Right? They understand that this is not the end of their interactions with Israel and the U.S. They understand that the pressure can't be kept on at this level for forever. And they understand that if they make a deal now, establish a ceasefire, return to more normal relations, they will be able to begin rebuilding their military capacity. And the key for them is, being able to maintain regime integrity as they do so.
And as part of our ongoing series Under the Dome, a state budget deal is taking shape, with just days left for lawmakers to negotiate an annual spending plan. Exact figures are still being worked out, but Governor Murphy proposed a $58 billion plan to start. Lawmakers tell NJ Spotlight News core pieces of that budget will make it into the final bill, like full payments into the public worker pension system, the state's school funding formula, and the anchor property tax relief program. So will some of the new taxes Murphy pitched to pay for the increased spending, and an agreement to find health care savings for state worker benefits that reportedly caused an impasse over the last several days. Our budget and finance writer John Reitmeyer joins us with the latest details and how likely federal budget cuts could throw a wrench into the whole plan. John, good to talk to you. You wrote about the budget today, but we're down to the last few days for Democrats to introduce a final plan. Can you bring us up to speed about where things stand and whether it looks like they'll get this done by the deadline?
Yeah, nice to be with you also. So right now we're waiting for a spending bill to be formally introduced. There is a hearing scheduled tomorrow in the Senate Budget and Appropriations Committee to go over what looks to be a spending bill, although it's still pending introduction, as well as several pieces of tax legislation that would need to be passed along with a budget to do some of the things that Governor Murphy proposed back in February when this whole process started. And so we're at this point in the process where we're waiting for lawmakers to what we call drop the spending bill, to approve it in committee, and then to vote on it in both full houses. And that all has to be done basically before Monday turns into Tuesday next week, because that's the start of the next fiscal year. And the state constitution requires a new annual spending plan to be in place every year on the first day of the fiscal year.
Yeah, so you mentioned taxes. There's about $1 billion more that Governor Murphy proposed. What do we know at this hour today about what taxes lawmakers are willing to put through? Reminder, there are all the members of Assembly who are on the ballot this November, and which taxes does it look like are going to be on the cutting room floor?
Really good question. So we haven't had anyone come out and say anything definitively yet, but if we look at the agenda for that hearing that's going to be held tomorrow, there are some tax hike bills that are on the agenda. So not a guarantee that they get passed, but at this point in the process, if they're on the agenda, it's pretty likely that they will. Included among these bills is a proposal to hike the per pack cigarette tax in New Jersey. There's also a bill that would hike the state tax on liquid nicotine that's used for vaping devices. There's also a bill that calls for increasing the fee the state levies on high dollar real estate sales. Right now, that fee kicks in at $1 million and more in terms of the price of the property. A new tax would be established, what looks like to be a higher rate on sales over $2 million. And then there's also a bill that would change the rate the state levies in terms of taxes on online gambling and sports betting. That's also on the agenda. So we'll see what gets through this meeting, and we would expect an Assembly Budget Committee meeting to be held as well. So those are some of the tax hikes. Based on the governor's proposal from February, the biggest amount of money, so there's that $1 billion you referred to, it doesn't look like the governor's going to get all $1 billion. And as you noted, it's an election year for the Assembly, so that shouldn't come as a surprise. There's a reluctance to hike taxes to that degree during an election year. But the state spends more than it takes in revenue annually, and the governor wants to narrow that gap. And the big money tax increases would be high dollar real estate sales and the tax levied on online gambling and sports betting. So if they make it to the finish line, that will give a lot more money to cover what's been proposed as a record level of spending.
Let me
for the
jump
next
in, John, because I only have a minute left, and I want to ask you about this. There is still, though, going to be a deficit based on your reporting. Are there any concessions that we know of that lawmakers are having to negotiate right now with the front office in terms of other savings they're going to have to find in order to make this all work quickly?
Well, it's a structural gap, and so that's been filled in recent years by draining down surplus. The surplus is a big issue this year because there are a lot of changes happening at the federal level that could shift a big cost onto the state. And so the key thing to watch as we come to the finish line is going to be how big is that surplus, and do lawmakers end up taking money from it to sustain their own spending, or do they leave a lot on the sidelines in case things like Medicaid and food stamps costs are going to be shifted to fund those programs onto the state?
Yeah, that's a big, big question mark that they don't have the answers to. All right, you can follow all of John's reporting on the budget and updates leading up and through that deadline on our website, njspotlightnews.org. John Reitmeyer, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Under the Dome is made possible in part by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Well, Democratic Congresswoman LaMonica McIver appeared in court for the first time today, facing charges of assault filed against her in June by interim U.S. Attorney for New Jersey, Alina Habba. That was stemming from a confrontation at an ICE detention facility in Newark that escalated when law enforcement moved to arrest Newark Mayor Ras Baraka. The charges have since been dropped against the mayor, but McIver was served with a 3-count indictment, accused of slamming a federal agent with her forearm, forcibly grabbing him and using her forearms to strike another agent. McIver has maintained her innocence and turned down a plea deal. Senior correspondent Joanna Gagas was at the hearing in Newark Federal Court and has the latest. Joanna.
Yeah, Brianna, today Congresswoman LaMonica McIver pled not guilty to charges brought against her by the U.S. government. Those charges come from an altercation that can be seen in ICE video showing a physical confrontation between McIver and federal agents. Now, the hearing today was short. The judge, Jamel Semper, read through the maximum charges for each of the 3 counts brought against McIver. The first 2 for forcibly impeding and interfering with federal officers. The 3rd charge is a misdemeanor. In total, she faces a maximum of 17 years in prison if convicted. Now, interestingly, interim U.S. Attorney for New Jersey, Alina Habba, who's been leading the charge against McIver and formerly against Mayor Ras Baraka, who was arrested outside of Delaney Hall on May 9th, Alina Habba was not in the courtroom today. It could be that she wasn't there because her interim term expires in July. She won't get a chance to argue this case. Another interesting fact, the defense attorney for McIver is Paul Fishman. He is the former U.S. Attorney for New Jersey. Today, he maintained McIver's innocence, as did the Congresswoman herself. Here's a little bit of what we heard today from both of them and from the large group of supporters who showed up to show the Congresswoman that they were behind her.
Justice for LaMonica! Justice for LaMonica! Who do we stand with? LaMonica! Who do we stand with? LaMonica!
I just left out of court and pleaded not guilty because I'm not guilty. We went to Delaney Hall for an oversight visit. The members of Congress had the right to hold these agencies accountable. And that is what we went to Delaney Hall for. We did not go there to protest. We did not go there for any of that. We went there to make sure that this facility was up to par and the detainees there were getting due process.
She pled not guilty because she is not guilty. On May 9th, the Congresswoman went to Delaney Hall as her right and responsibility as a member of the United States Congress to inspect that facility. She was there to see for herself and on behalf of the people who were there and her constituents in New Jersey whether the Trump administration was obeying the laws of the United States and the Constitution in that space. When Mayor Baraka showed up, HSI and ICE created a risky and dangerous situation. That's right. And now the administration is doubling down by charging our client with 3 counts of federal criminal law. We are eager to challenge these charges in federal court on legal and factual grounds, and we are confident that when we are done, the legal system will vindicate the Congresswoman.
They had no grounds to arrest me. The charge was heinous. It was an overreach, and that's why they dropped it, because it was absolutely wrong. They know that, and so everything that came as a result of that was also wrong. They had no business on the property in the first place. We were dealing with GEO, which is a private prison in the first place.
We will not stand for it. I will not stand for it. They will not intimidate me. They will not stop me from doing my job. I will continue to do what the people of the 10th Congressional District elected me to do.
Now, as I mentioned, all that was really discussed in the courtroom today were the penalties and the dates and deadlines for the court. I'm going to go through a few of the key ones right now. First, McIver's status conference will be held on August 8th. All motions must be filed before the court by August 15th. There will be a pretrial conference on September 23rd, but the date that really matters, Monday, November 10th, will begin the trial in U.S. versus McIver. Of course, we'll be following every step of the way. In Newark, I'm Joanna Gagis, NJ Spotlight News.
Well, Congresswoman McIver wasn't alone during that incident outside Delaney Hall. Her colleagues in the House, Representatives Rob Menendez and Bonnie Watson Coleman, were also caught in the fray but didn't face charges. They've been outspoken in their defense of McIver and exactly what transpired that day. Bonnie Watson Coleman joins us for more on the arraignment, the escalating situation in the Middle East, and where things stand in the House with the president's so-called big, beautiful bill. Congresswoman, thanks for being with me. Your colleague, LaMonica McIver, was appearing very confident today. She again called this political intimidation. I know there was a lot of support there for her. Are you planning at all to be by her side during any of these hearings that are coming up? I know your schedule is tough, but you've been pretty outspoken about this.
I will be with LaMonica wherever she needs me and whenever she needs me. And she should feel confident because she's done nothing wrong.
There's obviously charges, 3 federal charges about the interaction that happened there back in May. You were there. Of course, there's been plenty of video that's been dispersed publicly about what the federal government says were her attempts to intervene. Where do you see this heading? I mean, this is going before a trial. A jury will decide. There is video showing that there was physical altercation. I mean, she's facing up to 17 years here. This is pretty serious.
Okay, so first let me speak to the physical altercation. If there was some, we were the recipients. We were not in any way, shape, the individuals responsible for it. Number 2 is if you look at what's happening across this country in Los Angeles and other places with the masks and the weaponization and the intimidating people who have been just out of control with enforcing laws, which are not really enforcing laws, and locking up innocent people, citizens, etc., then you can understand why the experience that we had in Delaney Hall was quite scary. And so if anything, LaMonica was being a protector of us, and in no way was she committing any assault upon anyone. She's bright, she's strong, she's brilliant. It would take a fool to think that a woman her size would render an assault against one of those gigunzas while they were all masked up.
Let me switch gears only because of the time that we have. Obviously, things have been escalating, but we're in 2 days now of a ceasefire between Iran and Israel. Does the president deserve some credit here?
The president wasted our money by sending bombers over to Iran to do something that was unnecessary. We were supposedly in negotiations with Iran about their nuclear future, their posture. So if anything, is a further illustration of, 1, the president doesn't know what he's doing. Number 2, he likes to deflect from all the failures that he's having domestically. And number 3, it was a waste of our money and our physical resources to send people into this situation. It's made us less safe. It has put our troops and families that are in the region in jeopardy, and he shouldn't get a peace prize for it. He ought to get impeached for it.
Let me just push back on that a bit here. I mean, the White House maintains that no U.S. Troops have been harmed, that no one in the region at the bases that were striked in that retaliation were harmed, and that this may possibly broker a longer deal with Iran that we haven't seen since the Obama administration. If that were to happen, would you then take that back?
I'm not taking anything back. First of all, you're not going to intimidate a very a community or a nation of people who feel very strongly about their sovereignty. You need to be approaching this diplomatically. It needs to be both Israel, the United States, and Iran. And number two is the president is very fortunate that we've lost no lives in this situation. That doesn't mean that we're not in jeopardy domestically if there is a cell here that wants to retaliate, or that even in the region, the Mideast region where we have families stationed, that they could not be imperiled by this foolish mistake that he made.
Where do things stand with
nothing.
Where do things stand, Congresswoman, with the intelligence briefing Congress was scheduled, I believe, or supposed to have had from the president's inner circle? Have you had that? What information has been shared with you all?
Nothing has been shared with us other than the fact that we're going to supposedly have this briefing on Friday. There are words on the Hill is that some of the Republicans have gotten some briefings. I guess they're getting their lies together and their talking points, but we've not received any information from the administration as to what went down. I think it's interesting that part of the administration responsible for determining whether or not there was a need to even do this questioned the decision on the part of the president. So it's going to be interesting to see what we're told during the briefing.
Friday is when, at least reportedly, the Senate may try to convene to take up the reconciliation bill, at least the Senate version. What can you tell us about progress there in the House and whether or not you all will meet this self-imposed July 4th deadline?
Well, I don't understand this deadline because it doesn't have any realistic basis for being. I don't know how the Senate is making out. I hear that there are members in the Senate that you would expect who would be voting in support of this horrible bill, this big, beautiful billionaire bill. But they've said that either things are not happening fast enough or things are not happening deeply enough, or maybe, just maybe, they're hearing from some of their constituents that their constituents are concerned about losing their health care. Because as much as Republicans lie, they're poised to reduce the health care through Medicaid cuts and reduce nutritional care through SNAP cuts. So, you know, I tell them you can put lipstick on a pig and you can put some wings on it, but it ain't gonna fly and it's still a pig. And that's what that bill is. It's a big give out to the billionaires at the expense of everyday working families, the elderly, the disabled, our children, and of course our working families.
It sounds like then that you're hearing that the votes are there and that the proposed cuts, depending on how much they are, will be happening.
Well, they only have a few votes majority in the Senate, so if they can't get their people on board, they're going to have a problem getting the bill out any time this week. So we don't know. We just have to wait and see. And then we don't know what the speaker's marching orders are going to be, whether or not we have to take up the bill if it does come here. It's probably going to not have all of the Republican support because there are some folks over here who didn't vote for it because they didn't think it went far enough, or the cuts didn't happen early enough. And then there's some that don't want the cuts to happen until after the midterm elections so that they can lie to their constituents and tell them that there's no harm in the bill for them. But we'll make sure that their constituents know what the truth is.
All right, Bonnie Watson Coleman Forrest, Congresswoman, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
That's going to do it for us tonight. But remember, you can download our podcast wherever you listen and watch us anytime by subscribing to the NJ Spotlight News YouTube channel. Plus, you can follow us on Instagram and Blue Sky to stay up to date on all the state's big headlines. I'm Brianna Vannozzi for the entire team at NJ Spotlight News. Thanks for being with us. Have a great night. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.
NJM Insurance Group, serving the insurance needs of residents and businesses for more than 100 years. Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, an independent licensee of the Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association, and by the PSCG Foundation.
For more than a century, New Jersey Realtors has worked to advocate for home ownership and private property rights. Whether it's your home or business, we work on the issues that matter, here in Trenton and in your neighborhood. As the voice for real estate in New Jersey, we support initiatives that safeguard home ownership, strengthen communities, and reinforce our economy. Learn more at njrealtor.com.
Have some water.
Look at these kids.
How are you?
What do you see? I see myself. I became an ESL teacher to give my students what I wanted when I came to this country. The opportunity to learn, to dream, to achieve, a chance to belong and to be an American. My name is Julia Toriani Crumpton, and I'm proud to be an NJEA member.